Greetings, fellow adventurers. Welcome to a preview of The Traveler's Guide to Faction, an upcoming Kickstarter project by the Tabletop Journey podcasters and Kickstarter team. I'm super excited to delve into this. You know, they really are ready to set to rock the tabletop role-playing game industry. I am your host, Justin, aka Total Dumas, and today we're going to be diving into just a massive world of excitement, intrigue, and of course, storytelling. Now, let's get down to business. You may have noticed the previous artwork in the back there. I'll pop that back up on the screen a little bit so you can see. This is their cover piece that they're going to do. I really kind of love the overall vibe of this, and I think it really fits the theme of a major city being, split by a sword. Is really representative of, society as a whole being broken apart into many segments. And I feel like this product is really hitting that nail right on the head there. So how about we go ahead and get into the nitty gritty and get right down to business when it comes to the Traveler's Guide to Factions. In it, you'll be introduced to an array of 9 different factions, and each one's more intriguing than the last. But what makes these factions so special? Well, let's dive into a few of my favorite examples, and we'll get a little bit more understanding of how that rolls. Now, I want to talk specifically the fact that this is a preview. I have only seen the artwork and the artwork and the text in its raw file, so bear that in mind. I don't know what the final is going to look like, but if the artwork and the text are any indication, I really think we are going to be in some pretty great hands as far as Game Master resources. Now, first, let's talk what are factions and why are they important to an RPG? Well, the factions are really what are the societies or the structures that really bring our worlds to life. Whether it's a military faction, whether it's a religious faction, maybe it's just a small clan of monsters and their own faction that's split into other smaller factions. Each one of these, even with a single line of dialogue, can really be a powerful tool for us as game masters to enhance our worlds. And luckily for us, Tabletop Journey has really gone all the way here. So let's talk about some of my favorites. I want to start off with the Commonwealth Records faction. And what's interesting about them is they are folks that are they're not really like the rest that are out there. I kind of imagine, a group of bards and scholars and historians all on kind of an incredible journey to unlock the history of the world to everyone's benefit. Their headquarters is home to, a colossal library. I think it's called the Great Record, and it's guarded by, a massive vault, platinum vault, and I'm sure it's just an absolute sight to behold. I can't wait to see. I hope that they include a big sort of art piece to kind of target that feeling of secrecy being opened up to everyone. And what really makes them interesting is they're dedicated to diving deep into every culture they encounter, and that also is what kind of what their mission stems from. It's their goal is to understand people, understand music, understand customs and traditions, and really that is the essence of what they do. And that's perfect if you want to fit it into your own homebrew campaign or a setting that's already published, because you can find all of those sorts of culturalistic things in every single world, right? Now, because they're constantly recording information, that it means they're always traveling. They're explorers. They're capturing unique, ceremonies, superstitions, fables, myths. Others of them might focus on different plants and the roots, and others might want to go and try to understand the way, the trees grow and how they root themselves in the world and their curative properties. And so even if you're part of this group, you can still make an effort to be significantly different within that. I kind of envision like every single one of them is a teacher in their own right in a different subject, which means every one that you come across probably has different lore and stories to share with you. Now, beyond that, um, you can do a lot with how they all connect together in your world. And since they're explorers, they can be the excellent feeders to your players and their the knowledge that they seek, especially if you got those lore seekers, right? Um, Now, I want to unravel the enigma that is another captivating faction. It's called the Warp and the Weft. Now, this is one that's really interesting to me because um, it's very tied in intrigue. So imagine for a moment in a multiverse spanning organization, a web of spies and fixers, all under the enigmatic leadership of a woman named Gran. Um, Now I know that sounds just absurd and ridiculous, but it is so like on point. This person that's been alive for just forever, it seems. In fact, some say she's the very first hag ever. And being that she has transcended her malevolent nature and has kind of become this immortal with a timeless yet somewhat twisted perspective on the intricacies of the world. And I think that leads perfect into what her power or her secrets are. Grand's powers lie within the knowledge and leveraging that information. She's, honed the art of cutting deals, blackmail, and gathering, secrets to perfection. And I think that is really good if you're going for that political intrigue feel. She could be the one that's pulling the strings where the characters think they're doing their own thing, but at the last second, it turns out that they were being manipulated. It was Agatha all along, right? Imagine this: the warp and the welt, sorry, the warp and the weft under Grand's subtle hand pull the strings behind 90% of the espionage organizations across the multiverse, and that that nature that is a fascinating tell. The fact that we get to bounce around the multiverse also means we get to look at a variety of different resources. Here you can see a really beautiful artwork of what looks like some sort of mech. This implies heavily that not only is the world that you're going to be able to bring these factions into a fantasy realm, but as you explore the multiverse, you can expand. In some worlds, she may bring an intricate technology to store information that's literally has zero value to anybody in that world. It's like giving a caveman a jump drive, right? It isn't going to do him no good. And I think that could really open up the thought and ideas of what an artifact or a magical item could be. And that really gets me excited, using her kind of spun web to introduce unique features of other worlds. You get a lot of that in like the Spelljammer type setting that D&D has, or the Numenera setting where there's just generations of resources and people think magic is, a magic item when in fact it's just, a widget that does this thing with basic technology. So I think that this really Gran and her core of the warp and the weft really ties well into that. Now, here's the kicker. Most of the agents that are working for these organizations have no clue who they're really working for. And I think that is huge. I really do think that is huge. Now you might be wondering, why do I need these factions in my game? I've talked about a little bit of benefits that I would use. Well, dear adventurer, let me tell you, factions are the spice of all tabletop RPGs. They enhance the world, they flesh out the game, and they bring it to life. Single lines of dialogue that a, a soldier might say during an adventure in passing on the road is something that I think is a powerful world building tool, right? And connecting everything into a larger story is exactly what factions are about. Whether you're using the warp and weft of Grand Subtle Influence, or one of the other factions such as the Commonwealth Records or the Outriders. I think it's Outriders, might be Outsiders. Kind of all blends together after a while, right? Let's see if I can find the name here. The Order of the Ember Weavers. It is Outriders, and what's interesting is that they've done really a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And that becomes a critical aspect of quickly being able to deliver information to your players, at least I think. So I want to delve into one of my other favorites. As I mentioned, there's 9 in total. I'm not going to be able to get into all of them, but I really want to touch on the Guardians of the Grave. This is something that we've talked about on the Crit Academy show a couple times, but I've never actually seen anybody actually go through it with it. I've never actually seen anybody go through with it. So I'm really excited by this whole concept. And what that is, from the shadowy intrigues and espionage, you move into a faction with a very different mission with the Guardians of the Grave. And picture this: a cadre of fiercely dedicated undead hunters, relentless in their pursuit of eradicating undeath in all its ghastly forms. Think about that. That is very much not what I would have expected, right? To them, death is a sacred journey, and any mockery of life through undeath is an abomination that absolutely must be purged. And, we see this a lot in paladins, right? Where they have, and clerics who they're just turn undead, smite undead, right? So this is very much along those lines, which is one of my favorites, though I always like to put quite a spin on it. And what's interesting though is they have no mercy. There's no give at all. They spare nothing, not even those who claim to serve good or righteous causes in their undead state. To the Guardians, they are all abominations. Think about that. Regardless if they're good or righteous, that has some phenomenal implications to it. We've talked on the show the importance of, keeping monsters at bay. But how do we determine what those are? I mentioned previously we talked about something on our show and on Crit Academy, and it was that what if there was an entire civilization of undead, much like in the World of Warcraft game where you have the Forsaken, and they're not necessarily all evil, but then you have this faction that's all they do. So how are the players to behave when they come to a city of undead who are just trying to just enjoy their undeath, right? And you have an entire war going on, and the only motivation that the Guardians of the Grave have is that they're undead. That's it. That makes for the holy team, the Avengers, the heroes really truly start to feel not like the heroes. And putting the players on the other side of it, I think, can mean a whole new perspective and paradigm shift for the players, especially if they start their campaign fighting lots of undead and stumbling across this city and learning that not every undead that they slayed, cut, and murdered was bad. But maybe they started off that they were around this area and they've heard all the tales, so that just becomes the assumption, right? Because of the way they look. So I really like that. And the fact that that is one of their core little indicators is that whether the undead claim good or righteous causes in their undead state implies a whole paradigm shift. And I cannot wait to see how much more gets added to their faction details here. Because if there's a faction, there has to be the cause, which they're slaying the dead. But what's driving that cause? This is solely just a sacred journey. It says nothing about them actually doing anything bad, right? Now, their methods are very ruthless and effective. They've honed strategies for taking down everything from zombies to forbidden foes like vampires and liches. Once again, those don't have to be evil creatures, and that opens up a lot for me, at least. Now, a chilling faction with a mission that's grim as it is uncompromising. And I think that if I was to have this in my game right now, I think that's the direction I would take it. I would have the players recruited by this, going out and slaying and being stuck in a situation where what they see doesn't match up with what they've been told. Think about it. What if they come to a city where there's not enough resources or people for labor due to war, famine, whatever, and one of the group comes together and decides to they decide to raise their dead in order to fill the roles of labor so that they can keep everyone alive, to fill the roles of a military to protect their city. I think that idea clashes so much with this faction that the awesome team over at Tabletop Journeys has come up with, that you can run an entire campaign based around just this faction alone. And that to me is chilling and exciting. Now, factions introduce depth and complexity into your world. As you've just seen, I went on a bit of a rant there about how we can take this one idea and implement it in a way that we can completely shape the way the region, the world, the universe, the multiverse functions. They're not just the run-of-the-mill villains and allies, right? They're living, breathing organizations with their own goals, their own secrets, their own motivations, and of course, their own conflicts. Now, throwing them into your campaign, and just ask yourself, what would this faction do in this situation? And watch as your story comes alive. And you don't even have to just dump it onto your players. Write it out as a few lines of information that a guard says in passing. Yeah, I heard Livre was under attack by undead. They say it's surrounded. Oh, yeah? How'd you hear about that? Well, I got a cousin that lives over there, and he wandered into town one day after the winter and found it surrounded by undead on all sides. He couldn't approach at all. Adventurers constantly outside fighting. Now, overhearing that, we get an immense sense of, oh man, there's undead attacking the city. But what they fail to understand is that what that guy shared was his first experience encountering this after it's a new system that they've implemented over maybe a season. And that little line drives your players and puts a hook out there for them to draw them in, right? Now, I want to delve into the next fun aspect of what it means to have a faction in your game. So I want to turn it to your turn and talk about ways for you to craft your own factions. And they've got some really good questions just to start off get the wheels a turning, right? So how do we do this? Now, they have a nice long list of questions, and some of them are simple, but some of them really make you think. And just by asking some of these questions, you really can make a faction unto your own and find a way to fit it into the 9 that they've already created. So, first, you start with a simple question. I'm only going to read out a couple of them because there's quite a few, but I think it'll give you an idea of just how fleshed out you can make a faction with just a few questions. So, the first question is, what what is our goal? What do we want to do, right? So, because we don't always know what we want to do. If I know I want to do a holy paladins and everything, yeah, I can do that. But these questions really are your blueprint to creating good ones that'll leave your players in awe. So, first up, you want to think about the age of your faction. Is it an ancient one steeped in history, or is it, fresh face on the scene? This decision really sets the tone. Older factions, for instance, may have more money, more resources, more people, but newer ones are more adaptable. They can change to every situation, and their balance can shift depending on who's in power, which means you can get more internal strife with a newer one versus one that's been around for a long time. But because they've been around for a long time, they're stuck and hung up on tradition, right? They're not going to change as much. And so there's a lot that really goes into that. You know, each faction comes with, adventure hooks. So making it a breeze to weave them into your campaign, whether you're a good GM or not, or whether you're a new player on the scene taking over as GM, these hooks will spark your creativity and drive your story forward. And one of the other questions that really I thought was interested, beyond just how old it is, what is the core beliefs of the factions? Do they believe that certain things of society are to be followed? Do they think they're outdated? Perhaps they find that the government is unfavorable. Um, and how was your faction founded? And why are they renowned? Just because they were founded one way, say because a person pulled a sword from a stone, doesn't mean that's the way they stayed, right? Maybe some people didn't like the fact that maybe they say it was rigged against them. And so they're constantly fighting. And finally they win because a horde of people with pitchforks charge up into the castle and take out hang the man that drew the sword, right? I think that those simple questions and answering those really allow you to excel at the tying your factions to your world, especially if you can feed them lore through what the characters might know in their experiences in some capacity. Now, I think that I want to talk about something a bit that's a big deal here. So now I mentioned that the team over at Tabletop Journey has done a few Kickstarters. It's worth noting that this is going to be a physical copy. It is going to be their first time ever to get their hands on a physical copy of one of their fantastic masterpieces. And I think that is a huge step forward for any small publisher, whether it's me, whether it's them, whoever it is. And it's something to be celebrated. So if you really are the type of person that likes to hold that book and flip through your factions, you're going to be able to do that. And I think that is great. Once again, the artwork is stellar, and I've only got to see bits and pieces of it. You can see they've got these really cool faction icons that I absolutely just adore. Here you can see, I think this is the Thunder something or other. I forgot, and I don't have it in my walkthrough here that I wrote. But Thundersworn, is it? It is. I think it's Thundersworn. All right. They've got a lot of details on some of these, and they're really, really great. And they all stand out. But as always, it would take forever to cover everything. But I want you to know, if you liked at all what I've talked about already, you're in for a treat. With that, Fellow travelers, we're nearing the end of this, preview, but there's the thing. Here's the thing. The journey is just beginning. The Traveler's Guide to Factions is a game changer, and I want you to be a part of it. They want you to be a part of it. So, mark your calendars. The Kickstarter campaign for the Traveler's Guide to Faction launches on September 28th and runs through October 24th. Be there from day one, and let's help make their book legendary. So, I hope that you will join them on this quest for epic storytelling, intrigue, and unforgettable adventures. Back their Kickstarter and share it with your gaming crew, and let's help this tabletop RPG take the world by storm. So until next time, may your rolls be a critical and your adventures be legendary. Keep your blades sharp and spells prepared, heroes. Visit them right here at rebrand.ly/travelers dash. You know what? I actually think I have something for this. You can see right here at this little ticker down here, and you can find it right here at rebrand.ly/travelers-guide-2-factions. I'll see you guys later.